This is a trio of Sanke Koi Swordtails. There's one male and two females, and these beautiful fish are now my favorite fish in the fish room. They're easy to feed because they accept a wide variety of prepared foods such as flakes and pellets, but be sure to include plant-based foods as well because swordtails need to have a bit of vegetation in their diet. I often see mine picking at algae, and they've been known to nibble on soft plant leaves as well, but they're not one of those fish that are going to destroy your planted tank. Just feed them a balanced diet of high-quality food designed for omnivores and maybe throw in an algae wafer or a blanched spinach leaf every once in a while to keep them happy. Another great feature of these fish is that both the males and the females are brightly colored, so that's always nice. And like many captive bred fish, they're fairly tolerant of a wide range of water parameters, as long as you're not at one extreme or the other. They prefer a pH of 7.0 or higher, and a water temperature in the range of 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, or 22 to 28 degrees Celsius. They also prefer to have slightly harder water, just like guppies, but once again, they're flexible as long as you're not at one extreme or another. I have my trio in a 29-gallon tank, and I regularly have to remove babies to keep it from getting overrun by swordtails. I use a single large sponge filter which has a healthy growth of algae on it that they pick at regularly. I also cover the tank with a lid because these fish will jump out if given the chance. Your choice of tank mates is important because male swordtails are often aggressive toward one another, but this aggression can be minimized by keeping several males in the same tank to spread out the aggression a bit more and make it much less likely that any one fish will be singled out and harassed. Male swordtails have also been known to be aggressive to other species as well, because they do tend to be fairly territorial. But like many other fish, aggressive tendencies can vary from one individual to the next. A great deal also depends on the size of the aquarium and the other species involved, as well as the layout of the tank. So when it comes to fish compatibility, there are no rules set in stone. But it's always better to have 2 or 3 females for each male to spread out the male's attention so that he's not pestering one female over and over until she's near the point of complete exhaustion. And like I said earlier, male swordtails can be very territorial, so having more than one male in the same tank will create some tension, but in a large aquarium with several females, you're less likely to have trouble. Planted tanks are preferred because the plants help process some of the waste products produced by the fish. A dense layer of plants also provides hiding places for the babies so that they're less likely to be eaten by the adults. Floating plants are especially helpful because the baby swordtails will gather near the top of the tank after they're born. So providing them with a fairly dense layer of floating plants will give the babies lots of places to hide so that they're less likely to be eaten by the adults. And if you have both a male and a female swordtail, then it's very likely that they'll be having babies soon, because the males spend a great deal of time chasing the females around the aquarium and trying to mate with them. Here, a male is chasing a female and manages to get himself caught in some Java moss. The male is relentless in his pursuit of the females, so like I said before, it's always best to have 2 or 3 females for each male in the tank. The male uses the long sword at the end of his tail to attract the females as he tries to convince them to mate with him, so he needs to make sure that they have a good look at it. And there have been several studies that have shown that the males with the longest sword tend to have the greatest reproductive success. Now I've paused the video here so that I can explain what you're about to see next. The male is trying to mate with one of the two females in this tank, and when the video starts again, you'll see the male swimming backwards as he follows the female. And when he does, he bends his sword so that it's right in front of her face where she can't help but look at it. And when it doesn't work and she swims away, he decides to try it with the other female instead. Watch again as the male bends his sword toward the female and even touches her with it. She's not impressed. But it's doubtful that he'll ever give up trying to mate with these females, and I have a lot of baby swordtails to prove it. I think it's pretty interesting that the males swim backwards as they court the females so that they can show off their swords. And when the female does decide to breed with the male, he'll use a specially modified anal fin known as a gonopodium to fertilize her internally. And this modified anal fin is an easy way to tell a male from a female long before the telltale sword of the male begins to form. The male keeps the gonopodium close to his body most of the time, but when he's trying to mate, he'll bring it forward and to the side, and when the gonopodium swings forward, it folds to form a tube that's then used to fertilize the female. Now let's take a look at the female's anal fin so that we can compare it to the male's. Her anal fin is just a simple fin with none of the modifications that we see in the male, so it's fairly easy to tell them apart. Nonetheless, if you do have both a male and a female, then it's more than likely that they'll be producing some young. Swordtails are live bearers, which means that they give birth to fully formed live young, and in the right setup, these fish will breed like crazy. Females can store the male's sperm for several months at a time, so they can continue producing babies long after they've had contact with a male. This is true for guppies, swordtails, mollies, and platies as well, and some species can even store the sperm for nearly a year. I have a trio in this tank, one male and two females, and these two females take turns having babies, so there's a near constant supply of new fry. I've had no problems with this particular trio eating their babies, but there are some swordtails who will greedily eat their children if you don't provide the babies with enough hiding places. And as a general rule, the more plants you have, the easier it is for the babies to avoid being eaten by the adults. And just like guppies, most of the baby swordtails will head for the surface after they're born, so floating plants are especially helpful. Female swordtails carry their young for about the same length of time as a mother guppy, which is around 28 to 30 days on average. And some female swordtails have been known to give birth to more than 250 babies at once, but a normal amount would be somewhere around 60 fry each time they have babies. Nonetheless, you've probably noticed that these swordtails do not breed true. And many people might see this as a drawback, but for me, the wide variety of colors and patterns in their fry are one of the things that I love the most about these amazing fish. But this leads to a common problem in the fish-keeping hobby known as multiple tank syndrome, or MTS. Because now I want to separate these fry into different groups based on their coloration. But that would require several more tanks, and this is exactly how you go from one tank to multiple tanks, taking up an entire room in your house. And that brings us to the end of another journey. Thank you so much for joining me, and I really hope that you have a beautiful day.